Welcome to ILTV on the Hour. We're live from Israel with your top headlines from across the region. It's 7 a.m. in New York City and 2 p.m. here in Israel. I'm Khalid Ben David, and these are the latest developments coming to you live from Israel. Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman says Riyadh wants to join the Abraham Accords and normalize relations with Israel, but only if that process includes a clear path towards a Palestinian state. The White House meetings yesterday between U.S. President Donald Trump and Mohammed bin Salman did yield a security pact and potentially $1 trillion in deals between the two nations. Speaking alongside Trump in the Oval Office, bin Salman said the two leaders had a healthy discussion on the Abraham Accords and are working to create the right solution for a pathway to a two-state solution. President Trump also announced a new defense pact that will include the controversial sale of F-35 fighter jets to Saudi Arabia, which he designated as a major non-NATO ally of the U.S. Let's take a listen, if we can, to some of what they had to say there.
So definitely we believe having a good relation with all Middle Eastern countries is a good thing, and we want to be part of the Abraham Accord, but we want also to be sure that we secure a clear path of two-state solution. And today we have a healthy discussion with Mr. President that we're going to work on that to be sure that we can prepare the right situation as soon as possible to have that.
I think I don't want to use the word commitment, but we've had a very good talk on the Abraham Accords. We talked about one state, two state. We talked about a lot of things in a short period of time. We'll be discussing it further too. But I think you have a very good feeling toward the Abraham Accords.
Yes, definitely, Mr. President. We want peace for the Israelis, we want peace for the Palestinians, we want them to coexist peacefully in the region, and we will do our best to reach that day.
Now, the IDF is formally objecting to the U.S. sale of those F-35s to Saudi, warning it could threaten Israel's qualitative military edge in the region. An Israel Air Force position paper saying Israel's long-range operations depend on exclusive access to the fighter jet, and Saudi deployment of identical aircraft could undercut that advantage. When asked about this, Trump said both countries are great allies and deserve top-of-the-line equipment. On reports that Israel conditioned the sale on Saudi normalization, Trump said Israel is aware and they're going to be very happy. Trump also praised bin Salman for the role he played in helping make the Gaza peace deal possible and asked him to join the new Board of Peace, which is set to oversee the reconstruction and governance of Gaza. Trump, who will chair that board, said it would include leaders of many major countries. Back here in Israel, a deadly terror attack in Judea yesterday has left one man dead and 3 others wounded. 71-year-old Kiryat Arba resident Aharon Cohen was killed at the Gush Etzion junction south of Jerusalem. 3 others, a woman in her 40s, a 30-year-old man, and a 15-year-old boy, suffered serious to moderate wounds when 2 Palestinian terrorists rammed their vehicle into civilians and then attempted to stab them. Cohen was laid to rest last night in Kiryat Arba. A widower, he leaves behind 6 children and many grandchildren. Now, according to the IDF and eyewitnesses, the terrorists, identified as 18-year-old Ibrahim Imran El Atrash of Hebron, and 18-year-old Walid Mohammed Khalil Sabane of Beit Ummah, arrived by car, accelerated into people standing near the junction, and then exited the vehicle with knives. Nearby IDF reservists reacted instantly, shooting and killing both attackers. Inside the terrorist car, security forces later discovered explosive materials, which were neutralized by border police bomb disposal units. Palestinian Islamic Jihad praised the attack, calling on Palestinians to escalate violence. Hamas called it a, quote, natural response, though neither group formally claimed responsibility. Prime Minister Netanyahu condemned the terror attack, saying in a statement that today we experienced another Palestinian terrorist attack, and we are determined to complete the war on all fronts, including disarming Hamas and demilitarizing the Gaza Strip, to ensure that Gaza will no longer pose a greater danger. On other fronts, Lebanese officials say 13 people were killed and 4 injured after an Israeli drone strike hit a Hamas training compound inside the Ain al-Hilwe refugee camp near Sidon. Now, this is the deadliest Israel Air Force strike in Lebanon since the ceasefire nearly a year ago. Lebanese media reported a vehicle at the entrance to the camp was hit by 3 missiles, with damages both inside and outside the vehicle. The IDF said it used precision munitions, aerial surveillance, and real-time intelligence to minimize civilian harm. The IDF confirming the strike, saying the terrorists targeted were actively preparing attacks against Israel and IDF forces. Now, the military says the compound was used by Hamas for training, planning, and operational briefings ahead of attempted attacks on Israeli troops. And the strike does mark one of the most significant Israeli attacks at Hamas inside Lebanon in recent months. Early this year, Hamas commanders were targeted and killed in Tripoli and Sidon. IDF sources say the facility had been under surveillance for an extended period, with intelligence teams waiting for the moment when dozens of operatives were present. Meanwhile, in another IDF airstrike in South Lebanon, 2 operatives of Hezbollah were eliminated. According to the IDF, one of the terrorists was engaged in trying to renew Hezbollah activities in the Binchbel area. The second was targeted while trying to collect intelligence on Israeli forces near Blida. Both were operating in violation of the ceasefire agreement signed last year between Israel and the Lebanese government. Tanzanians and Israelis attended a ceremony for the repatriation of the remains of Tanzanian hostage Joshua Lotu Molel, held at Ben Gurion Airport here in Israel. Now, Molel was an agricultural student from Tanzania who came to Kibbutz Nachal Oz 19 days before the October 7th attack in 2023, where he was killed and his body taken to Gaza by the terrorists. His remains were handed over by Hamas a week ago and taken to the Israeli Forensic Institute in Tel Aviv, who made the identification. Now, these handovers, of course, are part of the U.S. mediated deal with Hamas, which is still to release 3 more bodies of hostages it has been holding in Gaza, those of the Israelis Ron Givli and Dra'or, and a Thai agricultural worker, Suthisak Rinthalik. And back in the U.S., a Brooklyn neo-Nazi convicted of planning to poison Jewish children has been found guilty in a federal courthouse. The jury has convicted Michael Chikashvili of leading a hate-driven plot to poison Jewish children and promote mass attacks, with prosecutors warning his activities posed a grave threat to the community. The 21-year-old Georgian national was convicted of severe hate crimes and plotting a mass casualty attack that targeted youngsters in New York's Hasidic Orthodox community. Now, he was identified as the leader of an international terror group known as the Insane Murder Cult. He admitted to attempting to poison Jewish children and distributing detailed instructions for manufacturing explosives and lethal toxins. According to the indictment, he planned a large-scale attack intending to take place in New York on New Year's Eve in 2024. An accomplice was to dress in a festive costume and hand out poison candy to Jewish children. The defendant had been working at a rehabilitation facility in Brooklyn and was actually employed by a Hasidic family to care for an elderly relative. In conversations with associates, he boasted, "I worked for the Jewish family, and they pay me to torture a dying Jew. I think I almost killed him today." Now, Chikashvili circulated a manifesto titled The Haters Manual, which encouraged mass killings and school shootings. He was extradited from Moldova to the United States in May 2025. He faces a sentence of up to 40 years in prison. Now let's get back to today's big story. All the headlines that came out of the White House meeting between President Trump and the Saudi Crown Prince. For more on that, we are joined from the U.S. by Dr. Eric Mandel. He's the founder and director of MEPIN. That's the Middle East Political Information Network. And Robert Silverman, a former U.S. diplomat and editor-in-chief of the Jerusalem Strategic Tribune. Robert, as a former diplomat, I just want to start with you. We can start breaking out some of the sort of details involved here. But just as an extraordinary meeting, seems to be a real new chapter in relations between the U.S. and the Saudis, especially, of course, after the sort of rupture that happened following the murder of Adnan Khashoggi.
Right. U.S. and Saudi Arabia have had a very close alliance for many years. I served in Saudi Arabia in the years 2005 to 2007. It was super close back then during the George W. Bush administration. You're right. There was a brief period, I should say, during the early Biden administration where the relations were tough. But even Biden got over that and, sought Saudi's support. There are longstanding common shared values and shared ties between the two countries.
All right. Well, certainly that seems to be the case with this administration. Eric, let's start looking at the specifics of this trip. Eric, there was some anticipation going into this meeting that we might see some kind of normalization of ties between, or an announcement of some, perhaps Saudi Arabia considering the Abraham Accords. But Eric, it doesn't seem, none of that seems to have panned out. The Saudis sticking firm on their insistence about Palestinian normalization.
You're correct. They came with a wish list and they got just about everything. They wanted a defense pact similar to what the Qataris got, or as much as a president could give without congressional approval. So they became a major non-NATO ally. They wanted something with a nuclear program that's now a civilian nuclear cooperation agreement. They wanted advanced weapons. They've been offered F-35s. They wanted more in AI. They got an AI memorandum of understanding. They wanted more investments. There are more investments. And this was all for a transactional promise of now up to $1 trillion. We have to remember that the promise was made in May of $600 billion, and none of that has really materialized in the United States. So regarding the Abraham Accords and the Palestinian state, what I would say is state-owned Palestinian media, Al Arabiya, how they refer to that Palestinian state is, and they wrote, quote, in convoluted language, the resolution does not mention possible future Palestinian state. And they're referring to both the 20-point plan and the UN Security Council resolution. So they're showing their distance. So they've been given everything up front. And in my opinion, that the F-35s, which have been given, are a significant policy and strategic shift. And they do undermine the very definition that's in American law of the qualitative military edge that Israel is supposed to have. And it's not just my opinion. The New York Times reported U.S. officials, both in defense and security, said that this undermines Israel's air superiority. And also the Air Force Israeli office wrote to the political echelon, also telling them they're worried about this. So I think one of the things that may come out is maybe there's a model here that the delivery of those F-35s will be what they did with the Emiratis, say that you're going to have them, but we won't deliver them until you meet certain criteria. That could be normalization. But from an American national security point of view, it's the Chinese that we're worried about. They're getting their hands on that technology, the stealth technology, because you remember I think it was last month or 2 months ago, the Saudis and the Chinese had a joint military exercise. So there's a lot for America to worry about of what's there. And just remember, we're making deals with authoritarian regimes. We're not dealing, with democracies. And you remember that MBS has to transition to become king. There could be instability there. You could lose that position.
All right, I want to give Robert a chance to respond to it. Eric's saying there's a lot for the U.S. to worry about Chinese influence, and this move is counting that. But it sounds like there's a lot for Israel to worry about here, at least in Eric's interpretation of the thing. How much of that, both in terms of the fact that Israel, at least publicly, I mean, maybe there's some behind-the-scenes agreement we don't know about, publicly did not get any of the things that perhaps wanted to see out of this meeting move towards normalization of ties with Saudi Arabia. And certainly the sale of those F-35s is something, as Eric has said, even if the government is publicly sort of downplaying its reaction, the Israeli government, the military here is making it clear this is a worrisome development.
Well, let me just say the devil's always in the details here. And there are two issues, and they're very different issues with the Saudi purchase of the F-35s. It's the QME, the qualitative military edge. That's in U.S. law. It's not just a nice to do. It's a requirement of U.S. law. And separate from that, there is the concern, which Eric mentioned, of either Saudi Arabia or the UAE inadvertently or advertently passing U.S. technology to China. Now, when it comes to the UAE's purchase of F-35, Israelis approved that. That wasn't a qualitative military edge for Israel problem. It was a Chinese ability to acquire U.S. stealth technology problem. The reason being that the UAE has a very close relationship with China. The cell phone network in the UAE is Huawei. They penetrated all kinds of things there. Now, so the details matter. If Saudi Arabia has adjudicated to have safeguards on the technology of the F-35, then the Chinese issue will be less for the Saudi sale than it was for the UAE sale. As for QME, that's a discussion between the US and Israel, and it's sort of in the eye of the beholder to some extent. It depends on which version of the F-35 gets sold to Saudi Arabia. Remember, all these airplanes that are like car models, they have different gadgets and they have different versions, and you can give them a version that doesn't have everything that Israel does have. So there are ways of dealing with this. Look, the Saudi did not get everything that they wanted out of this meeting, and there wasn't. This is an ongoing relationship. It's not a one meeting thing. The relationships develop over time, and what Saudi Arabia has specifically wanted from the U.S. is not what the U.S. gave Qatar, which was an executive order, which a subsequent president can revoke, or even an existing president can change his mind, and executive orders are easy to pull back. They want something that is approved by the Senate, a treaty like a NATO Article 5 like security guarantee. And that's a much harder thing to do. And so, no, they're not getting everything they want. They do have a domestic problem in Saudi Arabia with moving ahead with Israel without something for the Palestinians. If you've ever been to Saudi Arabia, you will know that generations there have been inculcated in this Palestinian-Israeli problem, and that it's deeply ingrained in that society. Billboards, as you drive by the highways, talk about it, and so you have to address the Saudi public concern. I think the Saudi government has to begin to socialize its country that it's going to eventually have relations with Israel. When we see that messaging going on within Saudi Arabia, you know that the normalization will proceed. But it's not just a matter of rulers signing agreements. It's also a matter of socializing publics, and that takes time.
That takes time, but
finally,
yeah, go ahead, Rob. Finish your point.
I would just say finally, my personal view is, look, we've seen peace treaties work well as more or less it is with the UAE. We've seen it not do much, frankly, like the U.S. Lebanon agreement from the 1980s that didn't really lead to much, or with Mauritania that was revoked by Mauritania a couple of years later. And so I'm not so focused on the actual signing ceremony of a normalization agreement. I'm more concerned about how the two publics started interacting. And I would prefer to see Israeli businesses and Saudi businesses working together. When I start to see that, then I'll be very optimistic about the future of that normalization.
All right. Well, Eric, Robert, and we'll come back to him talking about this is a longer term process, the whole normalization. I think we agree on that. But there is something that has to be addressed immediately, and that is the post-war situation in Gaza. Again, the President Trump clearly wants the Saudis to be involved in that. They're making it clear, and they're clearly one of the pressuring forces on the Israeli government to accept some kind of political horizon to the Palestinians. There are the issue of the disarmament. Who's going to be in that ISF force? Who's going to disarm Hamas? And reports now, and I'm not. This has been confirmed that Steve Witkoff may be meeting with leaders of Hamas. Which itself is a worrying development. So how much concern, again, to go back to Israel, out of the result of that, not focused on the longer term normalization, but just on what is happening now on the ground in Gaza?
Yeah, I'll just start off. Look, it's a huge accomplishment. The U.S. got a UN Security Council resolution this week that incorporates the terms of the 20-point Trump plan. It's a huge accomplishment. The Biden administration never could have done this, wouldn't have even tried to have done anything similar to this. We just have to recognize that it's an amazing achievement, and it's based upon a really smart negotiation strategy. And you have to wonder how these guys who come out of the New York City real estate world turn out to be such, so far superior to the traditional peacemakers and peace processors in this. But they have the track record speaks for itself. And look, no one gets exactly what they want out of this. It's a compromise. And in Israel, there's deep concerns. But you know what? Israel didn't come up with a plan. Israel prosecuted a war for 2 years, and I was there on the ground and sometimes working with some of the people there. They did not produce a post-war plan, even one that they could have passed to the U.S. and had the U.S. adopt. They refused for all kinds of reasons, political culture reasons, domestic politics reasons. Israel is relying on the U.S. here. And so you're going to get a plan that isn't going to have everything Israel wants in it. But let's be clear, it meets the Trump plan and the UN Security Council resolution meets a lot of, if not all, of the war aims of Israel in this war with Hamas.
On paper. On paper, I would say, but for example, disarmament. I'm talking about the disarmament of Hamas primarily, and the process by what.
Hold on. The peace treaty, the peace plan does not use the word disarm. It talks about demilitarization. That's very different. You have to, and the gap between the disarming and demilitarization is where I think you're going to find some interesting discussions on implementation here, because demilitarization probably means, giving up heavy weapons, rockets, other things. I'm not sure that it means that Hamas is required by the 20-point plan to give up all their sidearms and stuff. I don't know.
Well, that could be problematic for us. But I want to I want to
disarming is not in the peace plan or in the security.
I understand.
That's our interpretation.
I understood. I want to give Eric a chance to respond because I think he has some points.
It's supposed to be disarmament and demilitarization. The disarmament is getting rid of weapons. They played games between offensive and defensive weapons. Demilitarization, to my mind, a big part of that is getting rid of the tunnel networks. And those tunnel networks are going to take it's going to take years to get rid of all of them. The majority of the tunnel networks are still in place, believe it or not, even on Israel's side of the yellow line, because there are 100 hostages, 100, well, the Turks call them civilians, 100 terrorists in the tunnel network. And so on the good part, that I'll agree on the diplomatic part, the 20-point plan was endorsed within the UN Security Council resolution. There was no demand for Israel to go back to the 67 lines or a full withdrawal. It was endorsed by everybody with two abstentions of the two people who could have vetoed it, China and Russia. On a practical level, this is not going to happen. I have to say, who is going to disarm Hamas? There is no one other than the Israelis. Outside of the box thinking would be some private contractors that are there. I'm not sure anybody will buy it, but you could get mercenaries, if you will, to go in and deal with them. But there is no Arab country that's going to do it. Whatever Palestinian Authority or Palestinian police force is not going to do that. And so that is a huge problem. And getting back to the Saudis being involved in doing this, because America hopefully wants the Saudis to be the ones to be the financiers in Gaza and Syria and Lebanon. They didn't get any commitment. America didn't get any commitment from the Saudis to really be involved, not with soldiers and not definitely with tangible amounts. The president is transactional. We didn't hear numbers of what the Saudis were doing. So that's why I said I thought it was a one-sided deal. So Gaza is way up in the air at this point. And you still have those 100 terrorists in the tunnels. You still have Hamas that was the dominant force and now is ingrained as the dominant force. You have two types of aid that are coming in, food and commercial. Hamas is building its coffers again by taxing up to 40% what is going in there. So they are strengthened, and I don't see anybody doing anything. So I think the question is, from an outside person right now, it's 6,000 miles away, is that it's just a matter of time when Israel is going to have to go back there or not, or it will get into this, what people refer to in East-West Germany, East-West Berlin type of scenario. And how sustainable is that? And how long will America have patience for that? Certainly not the international community.
Well, okay, again, I want to give Robert a chance to respond. And Robert, just also, there is this feeling in Israel, given everything we've just said, that sort of like the government here has been put into the passenger seat too much so, and that the U.S. and President Trump is just driving this train sometimes in directions that may not be beneficial for Israel.
Well, Israel put itself in the passenger seat, Caleb. Gaza is what, 70 kilometers, 65 kilometers away from Tel Aviv. You would think that Israel would have had a lot of good ideas about how to do post-war. It had zero. So it had a lot of ideas on how to establish perimeters, tactical military things, and of course, prosecuting a war. But for all kinds of reasons that we can discuss another time, Israel did not produce a post-war plan. The U.S. did. And it meets most of Israel's war aims. Is it 100% that what Israel would have wanted? No, but because it's an American plan. It's not an Israeli plan.
Understand.
But it is what it is. But look, let me just say.
Just 30 more seconds, Robert.
The post-war reconstruction can start in the 53% of Gaza that Israel currently occupies.
Right.
Israel occupies all of the border crossings into Gaza. So whether or not Hamas is demilitarized in the short term or not, the post-war reconstruction can start. The U.S. is talking to all kinds of countries, Muslim majority countries and European countries, about providing troops and support. So
we'll
stay
have
tuned.
to leave it at that, and we'll have to stay tuned, as President Trump likes to say. Robert Silverman, Dr. Eric Mandel, thank you for joining us on ILTV. Now, one thing that Israel has learned tragically over the past few years is that when it comes to security, worst-case scenarios are something that authorities have to be ready to contend with. Our correspondent, India Naftali, has gotten the chance to see firsthand how the Israel police are preparing for that eventuality. Her full report will premiere on today's Daily Show at 8 p.m. Israel time. But India joins us now. Tell us a little about what you saw there, what your report will deal with.
Well, Caleb, I'm really looking forward to our viewers getting to see a glimpse of how this country is preparing for, God forbid, another mass casualty scenario. Yesterday, I was with them, and it was incredible what I saw. These officers are taking the lessons they learned from October 7th and putting them into practice, and that's what you're going to see tonight. I was able to join the Yassam unit, which is a specialized police unit that they specialize in tactical SWAT, counter-terror, and also some other special operations. Basically, the idea is for them to train for the unexpected. We're not talking about, Kalev, we're not talking about the standard terror attack. We're talking about scenarios much like October 7th that these officers wouldn't imagine, but they're being taught to think on their feet and on how to scan perimeters, how to think quick when the impossible happens, when the unimaginable happens. Interestingly enough, I was told that the Southern District of the police ran a drill very similar to this just before October 7th. And that same drill was quite similar to what happened on October 7th.
All right. Well, we see some of the footage as you were talking from your report. It looks quite dramatic. And of course, we'll look forward to seeing that later today on our daily show. India Naftali, thank you for that. And that ends this broadcast. Stay with us, though, throughout the day for the next edition of ILTV on the Hour as events continue to unfold, or you can scan the QR code up there on your screen for our apps. Until then, I'm Caleb Ben David. Thank you for watching, and stay safe.